Egypt has long fascinated historians and archaeologists. Its rich culture is still being uncovered, and although much of ancient Egypt had been lost to the sands, each year we manage to find more and more artifacts that help us understand this fascinating civilization. Last year during this C2 project in Egypt, archaeologists said that they had discovered a massive face carved into a mountainside. The mountainside in question can be found at Theban Necropolis, which is an acropolis on the west bank of the Nile. It's known for its ritual burials. The team said that once they discovered the face, and due to the position that it was placed in, it was likely that the face itself would light up during the solstices, further noting that the face would look over the royal necropolis as somewhat of a beacon. The team used computers in order to create an image of what the face would have looked like, but did note that you can still see the face on the mountainside. This area is also quite significant because it's home to the Ramesseum, or the memorial temple of Pharaoh Ramesses II, a king that ended up being very respected, going as far as taking on the title of a god. Ramses II was also known as Ramses the Great. He was the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty, and led his people into a new era. He was known as a great warrior and was respected by all across his kingdom. One of the reasons Ramesses the Great was viewed as godlike was because of the age he lived to. He passed away in his 90s, and incredibly he outlived most of his children. He ruled over ancient Egypt for 67 years, and was perhaps one of the most admired ancient kings. Many giant statues of him have been found all over Egypt, with Egyptologists saying that there's virtually no ancient sites in Egypt which do not mention Ramesses the Great. Another theory that was shared by the archaeologists was that this giant statue that was carved into the mountainside would actually guard the area, and although the team said that much of the carving has been destroyed, they noted that they could still make out certain areas of the face. The team was made up of researchers from the University of Madrid, and also included archaeologists from the Ancient Egyptian Documentation Center of the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities. The team didn't just discover this giant face carved into the mountainside, they also found unexplored tombs, carvings, and also mummified animals, something that was common during these times, with researchers saying that back in 2019 in Luxor, Egyptologists had found 30 wooden coffins, as well as a range of mummified animals at Saqqara. Egyptologist Jose Ramon Perez Aquino said the following: "It appears to represent a wigged face, perhaps similar to that of the goddess of Hathor, daughter of the sun god Ra, and although it's not exactly a sphinx because it does not have the body of an animal, it would occupy the same guardian role as the Sphinx in Giza." The team said they were fairly certain they know the reason why the carving was damaged, saying that it was unlikely that this was done by something like weathering, and the most likely cause for this damage was vandalism, further noting that similar disfigurations have been discovered across Egyptian sites. The team further said the materials found during the excavation suggest this vandalism was carried out very late, with them saying that it likely happened during the medieval times. The Great Sphinx of Giza is still somewhat of a mystery. The first archaeological dig of the Sphinx was undertaken in 1817, but it was sometime before that it had been visited and captured in painting. Around 1798, French painter Vivant Denon painted a picture of the Sphinx, but when it was finished critics noticed something a little strange. Denon had painted a man being pulled out of the head of the Sphinx. Two figures were helping a third out of the cavernous head of the statue, which had been painted side on. Now you may wonder whether this was simply a matter of imagination. Perhaps Denon had wanted to add something a little different to the painting, but of course nobody knew for sure, as it was the 18th century and the beauty of both aviation and drone imagery had not quite been invented yet. However, in the 1920s aerial photography had become possible, and lo and behold, a hole could be seen going directly into the Sphinx's head, a hole big enough for a man to fit through. Naturally, this made Denon's painting all the more interesting. It appeared he'd actually seen people climbing out of the Sphinx, which begged the question, who is in the Sphinx, and what were they doing? Not a lot is known about the history of the Sphinx, or at least there isn't a lot of definitive knowledge, but researchers have noticed that the head of the Sphinx is made from different materials to the rest of the statue. The head appears to be made out of a man-made substance, rather than limestone, hence the darkness of the stone head compared to the body. Furthermore, the Sphinx's head has hardly eroded, and appears to be smoother than its body. This again points to the idea that the head was somehow interfered with, maybe long before any Western people even knew of its existence. But this still doesn't answer the question of why those men were in the head of the Sphinx. So what do you make of these interesting discoveries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below, and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.